Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Today we're going to talk about five-card networking. I know it sounds like a card game. It's not a Texas Hold'em game. It's not a five-card draw. It's not a seven-card stud or Omaha High or any of the poker games you might be privy to. What five-card networking has to do is really has nothing to do with playing cards. It has nothing to do with a deck of 52 cards, as you might be accustomed to. It has to do with your business cards. That's what five-card networking is all about. I first learned of what I call five-card networking from a friend of mine. Her name is Berta Medina, and Berta wrote a book. She's a what I'll call a dreamer coach. She's been on the podcast a couple of times, but she helps people reach their dreams. And she wrote a book. She's written a couple of books actually. But the one book that I'll reference is Becoming Competition Proof. Stand out and overcome competition through generosity, service, and added value. You can find it on Amazon. But whatever the case, it's not a terribly long book. It's about 50 pages. And you could sit down and read it in one sitting. But there's one chapter, chapter 5, which she talks about following up. And there's a section within there called card counting. How many times do you, I'm quoting here, how many times do you attend networking events and see people passing out their cards like they're getting paid to do it? You take one out of politeness, and then halfway through the event, since they don't remember you because they don't care, they offer you another. Don't be this person, they suck. End quote. Very interesting, but she indicates in here, she goes on to indicate that when you give out your card, you have no control over what somebody does with it. End quote. Very true. You give out your card, you don't know what's going to become of it, and a lot of times they'll give out my card. People don't have a card, they'll give out my card. Hey, say shoot me your information, and I never hear from them. Now, it might just be they really have no intention of following up with me, or it might be simply a situation where they lose the card, or they get so many cards they don't know what to do with them. And I've seen people who are like that. Well, I've been like that. I've come back, back in my crappy networking days. I would go to networking events and I would come back with a wad of business cards and like, oh my gosh, I can't hardly remember what anybody's about. What are you supposed to start to do with these things? And you end up doing nothing with them because it becomes so overwhelming. And I sense a lot of times when people get my card, it's kind of the same thing. So I don't just dole out my cards anymore. In fact, what I have done is I've invested in some really nice cards. These are really thick. Whenever somebody gets my card, they kind of, I don't want to say do a double take. Yeah, double take is the best way to put it. They think they're getting a couple cards, and they'll kind of look at it. It's like, oh wait, this is really thick. Almost as if they've been handed two. And I do that for two reasons. One, the obvious reason, they've just done that. They've kind of really looked at my card, and it gets them to stop and take pause. But the other reason I've done that is because those cards are expensive, and I have invested in those cards in part so I just don't freely give them out. I remember when I was working in public accounting, my first job, and they would give you business cards. And I would, write letters. This is all pre-email. Write letters to clients, send out correspondence, whatever it is, send a bill, whatever it might be. Always include a couple cards in there. You never know, kind of the logic. You never know. Well, I kind of know. I know now because when I get, a wad of cards, what am I going to do with a wad of cards? I ask for somebody for their cards. I don't know what to do with them. One is plenty. And if I've already got your card, handing me another one doesn't do any good because 99 times out of 100, when I'm referring somebody, it's done via email. And it's not me handing their business card to somebody else in hopes that somebody else will call them. It's just, It's just not going to happen. So it's really kind of a waste of time. But when I worked in public accounting and I was, getting cards for free, I treated them as if they were free. Yeah, you're out to dinner and you have a wobbly table. I'm going to pull out a couple business cards and even out the table. That was my, feeling on the cards. But now, and then I started paying for my own cards. I took a different view, and now that I'm paying probably more than twice as much. I mean, they're nice cards. They're really nice cards. They have a nice colored edge. And again, people take note of how thick they are. It costs me, not just twice as much, but more than twice as much. And I don't complain about the price because I'm getting more value in my estimation. So what Berta talks about is don't give them the control, take it back for yourself. Collect cards from people you're engaged with. That way, if you don't follow up, it's your own damn fault, end quote, which is very true. Somebody, you get a card from somebody, you get information from somebody, the onus is on you to do something with it. And if you don't, shame on you. And shame on me. There were times I didn't do anything with it and had stacks of cards that I didn't do anything with. And there's a lot of electronic ways of getting people's cards now. Getting their card, or once you get their card, to certainly enter them in. And so you really have no excuse, But I guess that what that does is that almost puts an incentive on people to go out and collect as many cards as they can. Certainly give out cards and collect as many cards as they can. But what I find interesting in Berta Medina's piece here, and again, the book is Becoming Competition Proof, Stand Out and Overcome Competition Through Generosity, Service, and Added Value. And Berta is a master at this. I love this quote, and this is what gets into 5-card networking. If I attend a networking event with 5 people, I take 5 business cards. If I attend a networking event with 100 people, I take 5 business cards. I want to make sure only to take cards from those that I know and want to follow up with. Now, I take that statement 2 ways. You can take it 2 ways. So my first way of taking it is, when I go to a networking event, I'm only going to bring 5 of my business cards because I'm not going to be handing out lots of business cards. And that's the beauty of these large, extra thick cards I have. I really can't carry as many in my little card caddy that I have. So I only bring 5 because I want to limit myself to talking to 5 people. But what Berta's really kind of talking about here is that you only take 5 business cards, and you be somewhat selective about the types of people that you talk to. And I think both these 2 interpretations are not mutually exclusive. I mean, they kind of work in tandem, because when I go to a networking event, I'm not trying to talk to dozens of people. I'm trying to, over a couple hour networking event, I'm trying to talk to 4 or 5 people. You stop and do the math, right? You come in, you're going to get a cup of coffee, you mill around. I mean, you don't engage in conversation right away, T- or T0. You're getting a cup of coffee, you're milling around, you're waving, saying hello to people, quickly reconnecting with people that you already know. And then you finally get into that first conversation, and that might run you 20 minutes or so. And so there's, your first half hour gone by. And again, I'm talking about a 2-hour networking event, which a lot of them are, and it's plenty of time to be at a networking event. If you're at a trade show, obviously that's a whole different ballgame, right? I'm talking about going to a networking event or being out, to business after hours. Same thing. They only last a couple hours, and even if they're longer than that, you're only there for a couple hours. And so what I advocate doing is not trying to meet as many people as I can. I try to follow Berta's logic, 5-card networking, I call it. I'm going to get 5 cards, I'm going to give 5 cards. And they're going to be meaningful conversations, meaningful follow-up, meaningful relationships that develop down the line. That's the intent. Now, does it always work out that way? No, absolutely, it does not always work out that way. There are times where, I'll respond to somebody and that I don't hear anything back. There are times where I will give my card out, hoping to get a card back, and don't because they ran out or didn't bring any. I hear that, and then they don't follow up with me for whatever reason. I don't, in Berta's terms, I don't have control, and there's nothing I can do at that point. I mean, I've had the conversation, and life isn't perfect. It doesn't always work out. But the vast majority of these conversations where I've gotten their card, and and I have the power to follow up, and they have my card, it goes somewhere. And again, it's not 100%, but I don't need it to be 100%. If I go to an event and I talk to 5 people, and 2 of those 5 people turn into great relationships, that's plenty. That's a lot. If 3, that's even better. If all 5, wow. You do that every month, and at the end of the year, you've got 60 new great relationships. I'm not talking clients. I'm talking relationships. I'm talking people who know about you and what you are, and you're on their radar, and vice versa. They're on your radar, and you're finding ways to help them. So the point of this short program, it's a shorter episode today, the point of this program is just to kind of understand the notion of 5-card networking. You're going to events, it's not doling out as many cards as you can. You're better off to get other people's cards than just dole yours out and hope that somebody's going to contact you. Or I gave everybody 3 as opposed to 2. I'm even doing much better. No, that's not it. But try and get their cards, but limit yourself to 5. Give out 5, get 5. And really focus on creating relationships as opposed to just making traction by getting lots of cards or giving lots of cards.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.